Hi everyone, this is Emmy. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this herringbone in the back loop crochet stitched hat. And you can make this any size, and the written pattern is going to be below the video in the first comment. To work this herringbone stitch, I'm going to work with this bulky yarn. You could use 2 strands of worsted weight yarn, or Bernat Super Softy, or Bernat Hometown. And I'm going to start with a slip knot to work my foundation chain. For hats, start with a foundation chain of 22. For a beanie, if you want a rolled brim, start with a foundation chain of 30. For a hat with a rolled brim, add an additional 8 stitches to your foundation chain. So I'm just going to go ahead and work a foundation chain. So just chain stitches for your foundation chain. When you have your foundation chain the correct length, single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. And now we're going to work our first herringbone stitch. Insert your hook through that last loop of the single crochet and then into the next stitch and pull up a loop. Now you're going to have 3 loops on your hook. Pull that up a little bit so that it's easier to insert into for the next stitch, and then pick up the yarn and pull it through all 3 loops. And we'll make the next one. We're going to go through that last loop and through the next stitch and pull up a loop, pull up a little bit to make a loose stitch here. You have 3 loops on the hook. Pick up the yarn and pull it through all 3 loops. Again, through that last loop into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull the yarn through all 3 loops on the hook. So I'm going to go ahead and work all the way across the row. Okay, I worked all the way across the row. There's my last stitch. At the end of the row, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. And now I'm going to start with my herringbone stitch again. Insert the hook through that last loop. And then in the back loop of the next stitch, pull up the loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Pick up the yarn, pull it through all 3 loops. There's that last loop. Insert the hook through that stitch, through the back loop of the next stitch, and pull up a loop. 3 loops on the hook. Pick up the yarn, pull it through all 3 loops on the hook. So I'll do another stitch. It's that last loop. Pass the hook through there. Pass the hook through the back loop of the next stitch. Pull up a loop. Pull through all 3 loops. Through that last loop. Through the next stitch. Pull it up so it's easier to get into that loop. You have a loose loop for the next stitch. So into that last loop, into the back loop, like that, all the way across the row. Okay, I worked all the way across that row. Now every row will be exactly the same. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. And now you're going to go through that loop, through the back loop of the next stitch, pull up a loop, pick up the yarn, pull it through all 3 loops, through that last loop, through the next back loop, pull up a loop, pull through all 3 loops. Like that, all the way across the row. When you're working these subsequent rows, roll your work over so that you can see these tops of these loops. So it's not in this loop, roll it over and go through that back loop. So through that last loop, roll it over, through that loop, and complete the stitch. So not this stitch, this stitch. Okay, I worked all the way across that row. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. Now we're going to work our next herringbone stitch. Pass the hook through that second loop, and here's how the stitch looks from the front, but roll the work over so that you can see the tops of these stitches and work in that back loop. Remember to pull it up tall and then pull the loop through. So now we're going to find that end loop, pass the hook through there. We're not passing through these stitches, roll it over and go through that loop. So through that loop, roll that over, and go through that back loop. All the way across the row. Okay, I worked all the way across the row, and that's how that's looking. So for a hat, you're going to go ahead and work as many rows as you need to be able to wrap this around the head. And then you'll sew the 2 ends together to form a tube, and then gather the top, and your hat will be finished. If you like this video, please click like, as it helps in the YouTube algorithm.